before the arenas, before the awards.
This is b4Nashville Live. Have a question for our guest?
Send it to us via Messenger.
Here's your host, George Davis.
And welcome to b4Nashville, where we introduce the country stars of tomorrow to the country fans of today. And tonight, 4 generations of musical family, I guess is what you could say with this young lady. She's the 4th generation. A little bit of music royalty, you might say, but we'll talk more about that coming up here in just a bit. Meanwhile, let's give a quick shout out to our sponsors, and we'll be back with our guest tonight in 30 seconds.
b4Nashville is proudly sponsored by Go-Go Tuners, the go-to tuner for professional and amateur musicians. Get your Go-Go Tuner at gogotuners.com. By Heart to Heart Coffee, the coffee that gives back. Find out more at heart2heartcoffee.com. By Cibby's Apparel, worn by heroes, made with respect. Order yours at cibby'sapparel.com. And by Three Rangers Whiskey, not for the weak or faint-hearted. ThreeRangers.com.
Well, our guest tonight, she's a Nashville native. She's a 4th generation musician from Nashville, and we'll tell you why in just a bit. Kind of a change of scenery for her, a longer life, but we're going to find out more about her music and what makes her tick and what makes you like her music. That's all coming up with Jessee Lee. Hi, Jessee. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. And so you are in Texas now, correct?
I am. Yeah, I'm right in between San Antonio and Bernie, Texas, in a little town called Spring Branch. And I actually just moved back here about 7 months ago from Nashville. So I've been kind of in and out of Texas for the last few years.
Okay, but now you moved there from Nashville.
I did, yes. So I grew up in Nashville, and when I was 17, I was a senior in high school, and my dad was like, "What do you think about moving to Texas?" So anyways, my parents made the move down here, and I finished school here, and then decided to go to College Station, Texas, and I went to Blinn, which we call Blindergarten, the little feeder school into A&M. And so I went there for about a year and a half and thought I wanted to be a nurse, but turns out that music ran a little bit thicker. So I decided to start doing music full time. And so I moved back to closer to where my dad lives down here, which is in Spring Branch, and just started playing full time and kind of made my way, back to Nashville in 2018. But I kind of grew a big love for Texas. So I was ready to come back.
Right. So let's go back to the early days in Nashville when you were growing up. What was it like growing up in Nashville?
So my dad, he was a songwriter up there for about 28 years. So mainly my life was about going to school and, he was a musician up there. So I was kind of involved in that world too. From the time I was a little kid, I was writing songs and playing guitar. And so, a pretty normal life. I went to a little school in Franklin, Tennessee called Battleground Academy and did all my sports and all that stuff. But I always loved music. And so I played in a little band down there through my school. And life was definitely, I guess, a little bit different because my dad was a musician or a songwriter. And my mom, she was a stay-at-home mom. So it was definitely, I don't know, it was very interesting. And I think that, I was very blessed that I actually wanted to do music because I think that, having him as a songwriter really helped kind of build that foundation.
So you're the 4th generation. Go back in the generations. Where did it all begin with the music and then it ended up with you?
Yeah. So my great grandpa, he was a musician, and I guess that was, I don't know, I guess during like the Great Depression time. And so he played in a little band and they did a lot of the Bob Wills stuff and soul music too. My family, my dad's side, they were always, had a little bit of soul in their music. And then he passed that down to my grandpa was actually in a band in the Navy. And when he got out, he played in all the Texas honky tonks and did kind of the same thing that I'm doing now. And so he did more of the Chuck Berry meets, the old school country, and then with, the soul, like Jimmy Reed and, Louis Armstrong, a lot of that stuff. And that got passed down to my dad, but my dad had more of the commercial thing blended with, his roots because of being a Nashville songwriter. So I was blessed to kind of grow up with a bunch of different musical influences. And I always say, my dad, when he'd come home from writing, since he wrote country music, he was kind of, he'd say country made him work. So we listened to a lot of blues and a lot of jazz when I was growing up. So I think all of those, influences throughout my family kind of blended what my music is.
Right. How old were you the first time you performed in public?
I guess I was probably at my second grade talent show was the first time I played with a guitar, and I think I sang Pennies from Heaven. And so I sang that and played guitar, and then from there, I started writing songs when I was about 9 years old. So I think my first time really playing, like I played a writer's round at the Bluebird in Nashville when I was probably about 10 or 11 years old. So I guess that was kind of my first, performance outside of, a school related function. But
Right.
yeah, it was definitely a great place to be able to do, open mic nights and stuff like that as a kid, because I got to meet other musicians and, be inspired constantly through all the music down there.
Now that's pretty unusual to be 10 years old and performing at the Bluebird, even if it is a writer's round.
I had my dad, he was my connection.
Right. Do you remember the first song you ever wrote yourself?
Unfortunately, I do. It was called, what was it called? It was called You'll Love Me Again, and it was about my first little crush that I had. And I remember when I wrote it, I brought it to my dad, and he was so excited because, he was a big, obviously, big on me trying to write my own stuff. When I was a kid, he'd be like, if you're going to sing, don't just sing what other people write. You need to sing something from you that you can, give to the world. And so,
Right.
yeah, that was my first, I think I was like 9 or probably about 9 when I wrote that song. And yeah, it's so funny listening back at some of that stuff. It's just, I'm really glad that there's no evidence of it.
So have you ever gone back to any of those early songs and thought about maybe revising or revamping and bringing them back?
I actually did with a song that I wrote. It was called White Blank Pages, and I wrote it when I was about 13 because I remember my dad was telling a story to somebody. He was saying the day that I was born, he was sitting there with my great aunt, and my great aunt was like, "Isn't it amazing that she's like a, black blank white piece of paper. Nobody's written on her yet. She's not been crumbled." And I remember even at that age, I was like, that could be a really cool song idea. And so, anyways, I wrote this little song, and the melody stuck in my head for years. And even as I've gotten older, I'm like, the lyrics were, 13-year-old lyrics,
Right.
but I went back and I actually rewrote the song, and I've been playing it out at little shows. And so, yeah, it's funny how that stuff revisits you, and especially melodies. It's my mind. I can't remember to pay my bills on time or remember anything else, but I can remember song melodies I had when I was 10 or 11. So have that going.
I don't write songs, but I can feel your pain about making pay bills on time. Yeah, that much I can. I'm right there with you. So who are some of the influences that have kind of taken a major step with your music, like your musical influences?
Yeah, definitely Amy Winehouse was a big one. I think for my generation, I hear a lot of girls that kind of have a similar, that sound in their voice now, and she was definitely a big one for me. And then I listened, like I said, to a lot of, older blues jazz music. So Billie Holiday was a big influence. I remember when I was younger, I used to try to mimic her voice, and my dad would play all the jazz chords and the things I couldn't play, but I would try to sing like her. And so, um, you know, vocally, I think it was more of that jazzy blues world. We listened to, I listened to a lot of Louis Armstrong and um, Etta James and all of that. And
Right.
then as far as, you know, the lyric aspect, I listened to I don't know, all kinds of people. I guess Guy Clark was a big one. Towns Van Zandt, a lot of those kind of writers growing up I listened to, and Merle Haggard. So I think lyrically it was more country based. Leon Redbone was a huge one. I loved Leon Redbone. And so yeah, just kind of, I don't know, I guess I'd say it was a melting pot of all kinds of artists. I think, I'm not really I don't really love specific genres. To me, if it's good, then I listen to it.
Exactly. Now, do you remember the first concert that you ever attended that wasn't your dad or somebody related?
Yeah, yeah, outside of songwriter kind of rounds and stuff, I think my first concert was, my freshman year of high school. I went to, an Imagine Dragons concert, and I couldn't tell you a song now, but, I really loved indie music and kinda that Americana stuff, and so I remember I went, to that concert, and then yeah, I've not really strangely, I haven't been to just a whole lot of concerts. I've done Lollapalooza and a couple of them, but I'd like to go to more, but, I don't know. I don't know if it's a lot of my heroes are dead. And so, there's people I'd like to see, but I haven't really got around to it a lot.
But let's go back to the songwriting for just a second. I got a couple of questions I want to toss out to you on that. First off, are you one that prefers writing alone, or do you like co-writing more?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I like solo writing if I feel like I already have the melody and I have a way that I can see it going in my head. Um, I do like co-writing though, when it comes to it gives you different ideas that you would have never had before, or a different way of seeing the way the song could go. So probably both. It just depends, I guess, on who the writer is, because I think some writers are um more lyrically driven, some are more melodically driven. And so yeah, I don't know. I guess it just depends on the song, but I like both.
Okay. And when do you find yourself being like most creative? Like
Probably
morning, noon, night, early morning.
probably midnight to 4 o'clock in the morning. That
I
is
get that a lot from songwriters.
yeah, I am a night owl by I've just always been a night owl. And so yeah, it's funny because most of the ideas that I get, are right before I'm going to bed, and I'm like, oh, I have to work on this. So I'll jump up and I'll try to write something. And sometimes a fresh brain is good. If I'm doing co-writes, I enjoy doing it more on a fresh brain, or at least by 11 or 12 o'clock getting together and write until 5 or 6. But when I'm doing solo writes, I usually don't start till way late at night. I always think, I always say I think that the ideas are floating around when everybody else is asleep.
Right, right. And then a lot of your great ideas come when you're asleep, but then it's like,
Right.
okay, if I stay up, do they still come? So maybe they do, and at night they're just kind of, still there. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm not a songwriter, so I really don't know.
No, I get it. They come in all kinds of ways. I always say that we just hold the pen and God writes it most of the time. If it's one of those songs that you can really feel, if you're
Mhm.
not forcing it.
Right. Now, with your writing and your music and your vocals, because I got to tell you, I love your vocals, and we'll get into that here in a bit,
Thank you.
discussing that a little bit. But what do you feel like is the most unique aspect of your music that makes people want to listen or enjoy it?
Um, I w- I would say I would hope, I guess I'm not sure, but I would hope it would be that I really tried to write things that are songs that I feel like I haven't heard yet. And so if it's, a thought that I'm like, man, I feel like everybody feels this way, but I don't know if I know a song that, portrays that. So that's kind of something that I really try to focus on when it comes to the writing part. I think vocally, I have a lot of people who, tell me that I'm like a mix of like a Amy Winehouse, Nora Jones meets country. So I think that that's probably something else. I've tried not to I guess, sound like everybody else. So I hope that's something that people will get from my music, is trying to find some authenticity in who I am as an artist that sets me apart, you know.
Well, I will say this much about your music without getting too far into it. When people hear your voice, it is absolutely nothing you hear on the radio nowadays.
Well, thanks. I
I,
appreciate that.
I say that in a good way, okay?
Thank you.
I say that in a good way. Um, Now, being a songwriter, what is one song that you have thought, damn, why did I not write that song?
I will forever say "Gentle on My Mind" by Glenn Campbell is my favorite song that I have ever heard when it comes to a story and to painting pictures in a song. And I wish I would have written that. That's such a beautiful song.
It's a great song. I mean, gosh, I love that song. Um, Now, do you do a lot of touring, or are you just kind of local right now as
I
far as
do
your
do
music?
touring. So for the most part, I do play around, you know, all around Texas. But I've gotten the opportunity to travel a lot more this year than I have in the past. I actually just got back from Wyoming. I just played up there a couple weeks ago, and then actually Wednesday I'm heading out to Louisiana and Mississippi to play down there.
Okay.
So I try to get out as much as possible. I'll be playing, you know, some songwriter fests too, like the Floribama Songwriter Festival and the Pensacola Songwriter Festival in Florida. So I am trying to just get out of just playing in Texas, because I mean I love Texas, but there's so much of the world to see.
Right. Now, if you could go on tour with two bands, say you're doing like a three band run, three set run, however you want to phrase that. What two bands would you like to go on tour with, or
Oh,
artists? It doesn't.
I love Brent Cobb. Brent Cobb is definitely one of my favorites right now, and I know he's not super, you know, he's not really played on the radio very much. He's more of an Americana artist, but I think that's kind of the world that I can see, you know, wanting to get into. So I'd say probably Brent Cobb, and I love Miranda Lambert too. I'd love to do something with her. And Casey Musgraves, I love both of them. So yeah, probably both of those.
Yeah. A lot of I mean, well, they're all, I mean, I think they're all Texas artists, aren't they? I
Yeah,
know Casey and Miranda are, and I think Brent is too. Brent's actually gonna be on tour with, Luke Combs in 2023. I was reading the other day.
that's so
Uh,
awesome. Yeah, I'm really happy for him because he's really stayed true to who he is as an artist and as a writer. And I actually, one of my friends is pretty close with him, and he's been like, man, he is just the best guy, most down to earth person. And so I always want those people to win because, you know, I feel like, I don't know. I feel like people don't really stay true to who they are as an artist when there's, you know, if somebody's offering you, you know, a major label deal or something, and they're saying, you know, well, if you can do more songs like this, then we'll be able to do that. You know, it's easy to want to take a deal like that. But that's why I really respect people like, um, you know, Tyler Childers and a lot of those people who are kind of doing their own music outside of just what, you know, the label is wanting.
Absolutely. I mean, Tyler, Cody Johnson, Cole Wetzel. I mean, I don't think Cole signed anybody right now, is he?
I don't know, I'm not sure. And Cody
Yeah,
Jinks too, you know, he's
Cody
big on
Jinks, yeah,
that.
he's another good example, yeah. Um, so when you're heading out on tour, what are the absolute necessities that you have to pack to take with you?
Oh gosh, I guess my guitar, some clothes. Um, I don't know. I really don't have too many things that I have to have. Um, I guess mainly a guitar and a phone charger. But no, I don't feel like I have too much. I try to be as simple as I possibly can.
Nothing wrong with that. Simple's good. Simple is absolutely good. Um, Now your college years, because you said you only went for a year and a half, and what'd you say you're going to major in nursing,
Yes,
right?
I was going to school for nursing. I actually thought that I wanted to go into the military. I thought that I wanted to be a Navy corpsman. And
Mhm.
I think growing up, I always knew that I loved music and I loved to write. And, I always had people that asked me why I was not wanting to chase music. And I felt like music had kind of a selfish connotation with it. Just because, as a musician, you're constantly worried about, you're the product. So you're trying to sell yourself and everything's about you and taking pictures of you and all of that. And I feel like just growing up around the industry, I I saw a lot I saw a lot of that, and I kind of wanted to do something that I felt like was helping people more. So I was looking into doing nursing. So
Right.
when I was 18 or 19, I started working for this company called Duramedic. And basically, I was going to different hospitals all around the College Station and Houston area. And I was having to work in these hospitals doing insurance and stuff like that. I hated it. And it was just not, I think once I kind of started getting more into the hospital world, I realized that I am not a 9 to 5 girl or really I'm not very good on going to the same place every day and having a certain schedule every week. I'm kind of, I think, more free spirited. And so, anyways, but I was doing that, and I remember I was talking to somebody. I was still playing music and playing gigs, and um, I had written a song, and somebody came up to me, and they had tears in their eyes, and they were like, "You have no idea, if you write a song that impacts somebody, how much it actually impacts them." And I was like, it's funny because I'm struggling with that feeling of feeling like music is a selfish life. And they were like, if you're making music for people and it's actually coming from the heart, it's not selfish. You're actually giving to people, more than you probably realize it. And so I think when I kind of changed my perspective and started thinking of like not every artist is, a selfish, self-absorbed kind of person. A lot of artists give back with what they can and try to write
Right.
things for people that, might actually need that song. Then so that's kind of where, my mind shifted actually in that one conversation I had. And I remember um I walked into my sophomore year of it was some kind of math class, and I walked in and the lady was putting something on the board, and in that moment I like shut my book and I just walked out of the classroom, and I went home and I called my mom, and I was in tears because my parents had sent me to a college preparatory school since I was in 5th grade. And so they, my parents, neither one of them had went to college, but my dad, was a musician, and they were really, I think my dad knew how hard this industry is, especially with being
Right.
a female. And he was, he really tried to steer me away from it. And so I was just so tore up because I was like, they're going to be so upset about this. And so I called my mom, and she said, well, you know what? If that's what you want and you're going to put 110% into it, like it's better than wasting money on college if you're not going to use it. And I was like, that was easy. And she said, but you're going to have to call your dad. So I thought, crap. So I called him bawling, and I was like, Dad, I just want to do music. And, but he was very understanding, and he said, okay, well, if you're going to do music, then you're going to come home and you're going to do this the right way. You're not going to just, you know, d- I think a big thing for my dad was he wanted me to see what the reality of being a musician was, as far as the late nights and the touring and the being around the drunk people all the time and all of that good stuff. And but when I started doing it, I found so much freedom in it. And although there's parts of it, like with every job, there's parts of it that, are frustrating. I feel like it's been the best decision I think that I could have made for myself personally.
Right. Well, and I mean, it's like you said, you get to that point where you're not aware of what it entails, but then you have to take that leap of faith to find out, just like college. You had to take that leap to find out it wasn't what you wanted.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that I had the experience of at least going to college and trying it first. And I've always said, I feel like one day I might go back. And,
Mm.
I felt like there wasn't something that I knew. If I had the brain that I had now at 19 years old, I probably would have went to school for social media marketing, because I think that is the hardest thing in the world as an independent musician. Because, I said this yesterday. Um, it's like I heard this analogy where this lady was saying, as a musician, it's like if you own a bakery And all you do is you bake bread, and then people come in and say, well, now you need to start selling, meat, and you need to start selling all this different stuff. And you're like, well, I'm a bakery. I bake bread. And so anyways, I feel like nowadays it's like we're musicians and we write songs and we play, but now we're also expected to be these, social media marketers and promoters. And, you have to be a booking agent and all this different stuff. So there's a lot that comes with it. That's, I have, when you have venues who you say, this is what I charge for a 3-hour show. But you're like, I'm also putting in the time that it takes to get there and to set up a PA and to, book the show and to, rehearse the songs and all these different things. I always call it the unpaid work,
Right,
So
right.
there's definitely a lot that goes into it. But yeah, I mean, I think it was a good decision though. I enjoy what I do.
The bad part about what you just said about the booking and doing all the unpaid work of a show, the downside of that is I don't think a lot of venues understand what it takes. You
Right.
know, you call up a venue and you book them and you say, okay, here's my price. And they're like, well, I can't really do that. So you say,
Right.
okay, well, shoot me an offer. And they shoot you an offer. And it's like, and this is just absolutely hypothetical. I
Right.
know this is not true. So anybody listening, don't call Jesse up and say, George said that, you can book for $200. No, I'm not saying that. But if you book for $200 and they come back and they say, okay, $50. No,
Right. Yeah. Well,
you got to drive, sometimes it may be 15 minutes. Sometimes it may be 15 hours.
right.
And
Absolutely.
then all you have to do in the middle, like you say, you've got to book, you've got to prep, you've got to promote, you've got to set up, you've got to deal with the drunks in the crowd, and
Yeah.
sometimes the rowdies and that kind of stuff. And then you
Pay for
get
your
that.
merch and all there's so much.
Yeah, and yeah, pay for that, and then and even then, once you leave and say you're going to say you're doing a 3-day run, so you go from there and you got to drive another 2 hours. Well, there's a meal that comes in there, and then you got a room you have to get, and then you have to do it all over again.
Yes,
You know,
absolutely. Yeah, there's a
and
lot that goes into it, and, it is frustrating because and not in any bad way, but I always say the people who, I call them like the weekend warriors, the people who it's not how they pay their bills, they do it for
mm,
fun, which there's nothing wrong with it, but if they're willing to go play a 4-hour show for, like, let's say 50 bucks,
right,
or, whatever, or a bar tab or whatever, I know people who will do that, and I'm in my mind, you're driving down the price for the people who this is actually what they do for a living. And so bars and venues get used to people just being so, they're begging to play there just because, they want their band to get there. I don't, y'all don't have to pay me, just, give me free beer. And I'm like, well, I can't pay my rent with free beer.
exactly.
So, it's a very frustrating thing. And that's actually something that I found in Nashville that was really disheartening to me because I had been playing in Texas for, a couple years prior to moving back to Nashville. And in my mind, I thought, I can bartend a couple days a week and then I'll play a few shows a week and then I'll have time to write still. And which I moved down there at a very unfortunate time. It was about 6 months before COVID started.
Oh
And
my.
so it was just an unfortunate time to move there in general. But I think it was amazing to me how many musicians that I met who said that they played, these 4-hour shows without breaks on Broadway and they were getting paid 50 bucks. They're like, well, but you hope the tips will be good. But I'm thinking these bars are making no telling how much money because one drink is $15. And
Right.
so it was really disheartening to me to see but it's very similar to like in Austin. There's so many musicians down there that it's like, well, you can, this place, everybody wants to play here. So you get 50 bucks and, come bring your stuff and set up. But I don't know.
Mhm.
It was very disheartening to me because I was thinking, this is supposed to be a place that they're, building up or building musicians and where all the musicians go. But I mean, I understand to, I guess, some extent, but yeah, that was partially why I decided to move back to Texas because it's more friendly towards, I think, independent artists who are doing this full time. You can,
Right.
play 3 or 4 gigs a week and make your bills, you know.
Right. And like you said, you get down on Broadway, and the thing is, you've got, if you're there in the summertime, when everybody's out vacationing and stuff like that, in a week's time, there are several thousands of people that
Oh yeah.
walk up and down Broadway.
Oh,
And
there's no telling how much, how much money. I'm like, maybe that's what I need to do instead of being a musician. Open up a bar on Broadway.
exactly. And I mean, they walk in there, and like you say, I mean, I don't know what the average bar tab in Nashville is, say in June or July, especially on a Friday night when all the bachelorette parties are in town and you got a bunch of, you know, drunken females and even guys, don't get me wrong, even the bachelor parties.
Yeah.
But, they get a little on the inebriated side, and they have no idea what they put in that bucket,
Oh
you know.
man, yeah.
But at the same time, they have no idea what that bar tab says either. It could be $500 and they
Right.
don't care, they just sign it and go on. Now they
Oh
may
yeah.
regret it when they get their bank statement, but you know,
Yeah,
but
exactly. I
but
know,
that's
it's
kind of the way it
crazy.
is. Yeah, and it's unfortunate because, the artist on Main or on Broadway and even off, I mean, in other places around Broadway, you
Yeah,
talk like Wild Horse and Johnny Cash's place and some of those others that are outside FGL House that are out away from, the Tootsies and the Legends and
right.
and all those others. They still make good money,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
it doesn't transfer to the artist, and that's a bad thing, I don't think. I
Yeah.
don't know what these artists get for playing, but I know like a lot of them, they're basically on a punch card, you have to go in at Tootsie's and you play 2 to 10 or 2 to 6 or
Right.
whatever, and then you gotta turn around an hour later, you gotta be down to FGL House and play for
Yeah.
4 hours, you know,
Yeah, I have
and
a
it's
lot
a
of
big
friends that do
exhaustion.
that. I know, and I think, "Oh my gosh," because I know for me, if I play 4 3-hour shows, for Thursday through Sunday, and I'm playing,
Mhm,
3-hour shows, by Monday, my voice is hurting. I mean, since playing music live and, doing it for the past almost 5 years, I mean, I've lost a whole range, a whole key range in my voice, and I think these people who play for 8 hours, like, because your voice is an instrument, and once it's gone, it's hard to get back. When my dad, he said when he was younger and he was playing in Texas, they did 5-hour band shows and he did them, 4 times a week. And he ended
right,
up getting thickening of the vocal cords. And I mean, he lost a huge part of his range and couldn't talk for 6 months. He had a little whiteboard he was writing on. And so I mean, it's definitely something to, consider. And I consider that whenever I'm booking something too, especially if it's a long show. It's like
right.
if it's not worth it, if it's not worth the strain on your vocal cords, and I don't know. So yeah, there's a lot of factors to consider, and I'm very glad. I mean, there are places like Nashville. I worked at a place called The Local down there, and they treat their musicians really, really good. But it is a songwriter venue. I mean, they have other bands that come in, but the owner is a songwriter, and I think
Right.
he understands, the struggle of what musicians are going through, and so there are the places, but Texas definitely has a lot of them, and so yeah, so I'm happy to be doing it down here.
Yeah, and I will say this about the local, Jeff Reed, I think is his
Yeah,
name. He is very artist friendly,
he is.
like you said, and he really stumps for the artist a lot. And I've got to, I mean, we're just like Facebook acquaintances, but that's one of the things that I really like about him is the fact that he really goes to bat for the artist
Yeah.
and tries to do the best he can. Of course, he's got to make money. Of course, when COVID hit, it hit him hard. He had to shut
Oh yeah.
down. It made a big difference. And I know coming back from COVID, it's been tough, when you're trying to make up, nearly a year and a half of revenue.
Yeah,
Uh, it's hard,
it is.
and
Yeah, I felt
things have to
terrible
be
for all the businesses down there whenever COVID
yeah,
hit, because I mean, although every industry obviously was affected, I do feel like, live music and the bar industry and all that was hit very hard too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So when you're getting ready for a show, hair, makeup, wardrobe, mental prep, number of drinks, what takes you the longest?
Who, um, probably Probably the makeup. Makeup takes about an hour. I'm a hair in a hat or a bun girl. I have a bunch of hair and it'd probably take me 3 hours to do something with it if I had to do it every day. So I kinda leave that alone. But yeah, probably the mental prep too. I call myself an introverted extrovert. So, I can be very extroverted, but I think in my nature, I'm kind of a quiet, introverted person. And so that definitely, I have to kind of, you know, pump myself up for it.
Right.
So that does, I play my guitar for a while and go over songs. And um, so yeah, probably altogether, it takes me a good couple hours to get ready to leave for a show.
Right. Okay, so now I'm gonna put you on the spot. Okay.
Oh gosh.
What's your most embarrassing stage moment?
Ooh, most embarrassing stage moment. There's been quite a few. There's been a one where I was in the middle of playing and I was sitting on the edge of a bar stool, and then the bar stool kind of came up from underneath me when I was playing. That was embarrassing. And I can't exactly remember what happened, but it's haunted me forever. When I was probably a freshman in high school. I remember I walked onto a stage and all my peers are out in the audience, and I got up there and I started singing, and I remember my mic went out, and it was just, I don't know, it was like one of those 5-minute things where I was standing on stage and somebody was trying to fix the microphone and figure out what happened. And yeah, there's been all kinds of random things that are just embarrassing.
Yeah, and without having
It
you stand there in
happens.
silence going, "What do I do?" You know?
Yes.
Do I just start
Yeah.
singing at the top of my lungs? What do I do?
Right. Yeah, there's been all kinds of just embarrassing little things. Or, if you're in a quiet room and you're trying to play a new song and you forget the words, like that's always embarrassing. But yeah,
Right.
probably the being in front of the peers thing when I was younger. I remember that being very embarrassing.
Then what's a favorite cover song that you do in your shows? Say your most favorite cover song that you do in your shows.
Mm, there is a newer one that I learned by this artist named Alan Stone called "The Bed I Made." That's
Mhm.
that's a really fun one. The chords are fun, and it's kind of a soul song. Um, and then anything Alicia Keys, I love singing because she has such a fun range to sing. So I do a lot of that stuff, and any Amy Winehouse stuff. I love doing her music. I don't know, there's so many, it's hard to choose, but probably "The Bed I Made," from Alan Stone.
All right. Well, now we're gonna shift to your music. We're gonna play your newest single, which is called "Dive Bar Superstar." We're going to talk a
Yes,
little bit
sir.
about where it came from. We're going to talk about the background. We'll talk a little bit about the EP because I want to get some clarification. I'm a little confused on that. So we'll get that clarified up for my sake more than anything else. But we're going
Sure.
to do that here coming up. But right now, this is Jessee Lee. It's called Dive Bar Superstar on Before Nashville.
It's a shame you ain't more famous. How long will this success thing take you? Said some ignoramus at the bar. Well, I smiled and said, man, can't you tell I'm famous here at the Wishing Well? Free drinks and front row parking for my car. And my name's up on the marquee sign in the tip jar's full. Hell, I know I ain't where you think I ought to be, but I'm where I are. Yeah, I'm a dive bar superstar. Well, I show up in my beat-up wagon, sometimes with the tailpipe dragging, along with all my funny and friends. We wear sunglasses in the dark, and turquoise rings like old black heart, singing to the hometown crowd again. And my name's up on the marquee sign in the tip jar's full. Hell, I know I ain't where you think I ought to be, but I'm where I are. Yeah, I'm a dive bar superstar. Everybody's gotta have a place to start. So get your tickets while you can, 'cause I ain't planning on being here forever, man. My name's up on the marquee sign in the tip jar's full. Hell, I know I ain't where you think I ought to be, but I'm where I are. Yeah, I'm a dive bar super, living off nickels from a pickle jar. Yeah, dive bar super, selling t-shirts from the back of my car. Yeah, dive bar superstar.
That's Jessee Lee and Dive Bar Superstar. And I got to tell you, that song has got so many different pieces to it. Because as you're listening, I mean, there's like, first thing came to mind, if you're going to play in Texas, you got to have a fiddle in the band. It's got the fiddle. And, then it's got that old ragtime sounding piano. And then all of a sudden, and I had noticed this until I just listened to it again, and I've listened to the song several times, and I'm usually in my truck, so I don't hear it that well. But I've got cans on it, I hear it. And is that a trombone or is that a
Yeah,
tuba? There's
it was a
something.
saxophone, and yeah, it kind of gave it that little trombone sound.
Yeah, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool though, because it gave it a very throwback sound that I love. Your voice is, and I don't know if it's. I mean, I'm guessing there's nothing different about that song than any other song you do. I love your voice, the way you've got that very unique sound about you
Thank
and
you.
what you're
I
doing.
appreciate it. Yeah, it was so much fun to do, and I got to shoot my first music video with that song, and yeah, it was so much fun to make it. And it's funny because I actually wrote that song about 2 or 3 weeks before we went in to go record, and so it's funny how it just kind of ended up making the project, and then now it's going to be the title of the EP. So I'm excited.
Mhm. So the EP is not completed yet, correct?
Well, so all the songs are recorded. We did 7 songs, but I talked to a few different people in the industry, asking them, do you think I should put it all out at once, or do you think, how should I do it? And they were basically telling me that with how today's world is, like how fast paced, people are always putting out music all the time. So kind of the
Right.
idea of like if you put the EP out, then people are going to listen to it for maybe a month or whatever, and then it's going to be like, all right, when's your next music coming out? So for
Right.
me, I thought, well, then I'll just release, one song at a time, which I was hoping to already have the other song already released, but we were, in between if we wanted to make a music video for it or not. But I think I'm going to skip the music video on this next song, and then just do it on the third song that I release. But I don't know. I guess I'm trying to kind of figure out, with kind of like what I was saying earlier with the social media deal, that's become such a big part of music now. And so I'm trying to do more content. I'm really, really bad at doing videos and doing content. Um, but I'm really trying to, work on having more video and having more music video kind of stuff. And so that was kind of what we've been trying to figure out. But I'm going to be releasing the next song I'm hoping next month. I'm trying to get the photo shoot booked for this coming week. So hopefully it'll be
Okay.
out next month.
All right. All right. Well, and it's like you say, I call it the curse of the attention span.
Yes.
People, I mean, I read an article um that said one time the average attention span is about that of a goldfish for
It is.
humans.
It has to
Which
be.
is like they gave like a number. Now how they determine the attention span of a goldfish and time it, I have no idea. But science is science, and
They have their
if,
way.
if science says it, it's got to be true. So we'll go with that. And my buddy Chris said he really likes it. Said your voice is cool, like a throwback to the Queens of Country, and it does. It's got that
Oh, thank
very
you.
classic sound, and I love that about it. I could just, but and I haven't seen the video yet, and I'll have to apologize because I have not looked at that yet. But it
It's
almost with the
okay.
music, what I was seeing was Sons of the Pioneers playing with you singing.
So you know
You
what's
know,
hilarious is I found this film director, and he's actually from Paris, France. And so I thought, well, this has got to be great because he's like a Frenchman, and he said he had went to school to film school there in Paris, and I was like, well, he's got to be amazing. And so I actually I went in and I kind of brought him a little storyboard, and I thought it would just be a very basic video of me, being at a dive bar and some B-roll footage of people at the bar and things like that. I was like not being very
right.
creative, but we had this meeting and he's like, you have to have the champagne and you have to have the fancy bathtub and the all this stuff. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, how are we going to make this happen? And so we ended up making it happen. We found this really sweet couple that actually let me use their house. I was like, hey, y'all's house is really fancy and I need to look like I'm in a real fancy house. And so can I use your bathtub and blah, blah, blah. It was real, weird for me. So anyways, so we did that. And so it starts off, where it's basically like this girl who thinks in her mind, she's a superstar, but when I'm coming out of the house, it's like this old trailer and I'm getting in this really rusty old car and on my way to this bar. And it's a really funny, he made it very humorous. And I was so happy because I felt like the song has some, kind of humorous little parts in it. And so I wasn't sure how we would get that across, but he did a great job of getting it across. So yeah, I was really excited with the music video, and he's incredibly talented.
Yeah, I'll have to check out the video because I haven't seen it yet, but I'm gonna have to go look at that. Um, just because I mean I have all these things in my head that I could see. Like I said, there was a part of it like if you cut to the dive bar and you've got you on stage, and then back behind you got these, like I said, the Sons of the Pioneers kind of looking fellas, that's got the big hats and the big handlebar mustaches and all that stuff, and
Oh
and
yeah,
I just see so much of that. It's just so right there in my face.
it was so
But
fun. And the whole song idea kind of came from um I as playing in a lot of these bars, I'm always having people that are like, "Why are you playing here?" Like, you shouldn't be
yeah,
playing here. This is a dive bar, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm paying my dues. And so
right.
anyway, but I have people that'll come up and that will try to give me advice about what I should do with my music business. And it's always funny to me because, most of the people, they don't know much about the music business, but they want to give you, their opinion of, maybe,
Hmm.
you would be more famous if you would like go try out for The Voice or something. And so it's funny because I actually had American Idol contact me and they wanted me to come be on the show. And so I had thought about it, and I have nothing against American Idol. I know they've done a lot of great things for people, but when I read the contract, it kind of scared me. I took it to my lawyer in Nashville, and he's worked with a lot of people who have signed the deal, and he was like, "Do not do it. I'm telling you, like, it can do good things, but they're going to own you for a long time if you make it to
Right.
this certain point." And so anyways, it kind of came out of that and out of just the people who, come up and want to tell you what to do. And so it's kind of just more of a joke saying, like,
Right.
I'm not where you think I ought to be, but I'm where I are. I'm a dive bar
Yeah.
superstar. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, it was really fun to write and, kind of, I don't know, helped me kind of make light of something that was frustrating me at the time.
Right. Hey, I totally get that. Now, um, I had another. Let's get serious just for a second here. And
Sure.
this is a question that I ask a lot of artists. Have you ever struggled with like self doubt about your career?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think I'm sure most artists do at some point, but for me, when I moved to Nashville, I felt like I had already paid some dues, in Texas, playing a lot of the places I'd played, and I was working on my repertoire of original music. And so when I moved to Nashville, I think I was hoping that um I don't know, I guess, you always think that you're probably more ready than you are. And I went and had a bunch of meetings with different publishing companies, and a lot of them were interested in what I did, but they all kind of said the same thing of like, we love what you do, but we're trying to figure out where you fit in into country music. And because a lot of my stuff, although I have songs like Dive Bar Superstar, a lot of my stuff kind of has a jazz, blues, folk Americana feel.
Right.
And so I could understand why, I had one publishing company that said, if you were to write songs for, give me, 4 or 5 names right now that you feel like your songs could be pitched to. And I kind of froze because I was like, well, and I think in that moment I realized that I was more of an artist than a songwriter. Because I mean, I am a songwriter, but I think for a long time I thought, I wanted to strictly be a songwriter and I didn't want to chase the artist thing. And so I did kind of go through some weird periods of being like, okay, well, if do I not write good enough? Is my music not commercial enough? And so then I kind of started trying to chase something that just wasn't me. And I wasn't really finding my happiness in that. And I'm not really a pop country person. I love, I could write either country or I could write pop, but it's really hard for me to do the blend of what I feel like is on radio now.
Right.
And so I think, and during that time, I was kind of, and I was bartending and I was spending a lot of my time not working on music because I was paying my bills.
Right.
And so I think during that time, I was feeling kind of lost, and I was seeing people around me who, not in a bad way, but I felt like, um, how do I say it? I felt like people around me were having success, and I was trying to figure out what road they were taking. And because, there is really wonderful musicians, but there's also the people that you're thinking, why do they have a publishing deal, or why are they getting a record
Right.
deal? Like I don't get it. And so I think that, that internal struggle was definitely real. And then, but I think once I realized that I am made to write songs for me and for not just
Right.
for me. I mean, if somebody wanted to record a song, I'd be more than happy to let them. But um, I think when I figured out that my music was my own style, then it kind of gave me freedom, and it kind of gave me, a way to say, well, I can still do what I'm doing, but do this a different way. So that was kind of why I decided to choose more of the, independent artist route. And even coming back to Texas, though, I mean, it hasn't been, super easy because then I had to, since I'd moved to Nashville for a couple years, a lot of the bars I played, they had closed down, or they got new booking agents, or they got, new stuff. So I kind of had to start all over when I came back to Texas for the most part. And, and so it's been hard because I'm trying to build a band. I'm trying to get my, all my songs released, and it can feel kind of overwhelming, and you can kind of feel like you're drowning in so many things that you need to do. And, so it definitely, has its moments of, wondering what the crap you're doing, and, is this going to work, or am I wasting my time, and I don't feel like that as much anymore. I've kind of come to a place where I'm like, you know what? If I get to play music and I have enough money in my bank account to have a little savings and to have, to pay my bills and to do things that I want to be able to do in my life, then I'm happy because I get to play music. And so that's kind of I've come to a place of finding peace in what I'm doing and not having to put these expectations on myself of, because my dad he's a big person to live up to. And I think that it's hard when you feel like you're in the shadows a little bit, when you grew up and everybody's like, wow, well, if your dad is, David Lee, you must be amazing, and you're like, oh gosh, it's this pressure on your shoulders. And so
Right.
I think when I was a little bit younger, I had more of a, like, I don't want to let my dad down. I don't want to let people down in the industry who know how great my dad is. Like, I had more of that in my brain. And, but as I've gotten older, I've realized that I am a different person. I'm detached and I'm my own, artist, and whatever happens is going to happen. And I just I work as hard as I can, and I'm just leaving it up to God.
Right. You can only be daddy's girl up to a point.
Mhm.
And then it's you,
Yeah, absolutely. And he's
so
been so incredibly supportive too of my career down here. I mean, he's, now he's like, I'm just the roadie. And so he comes to all my shows and helps me set up my PA. And, he's like, I don't want to talk about, music. This is your career. This is your thing. So he's been really supportive of that. And yeah, so, there's good and bad with all of it, but I think it's easier to
Right.
see the good once you change your mindset from being like, I have to be something. I have to, my name has to be on the billboards or whatever. Like, I think,
Right.
Obviously that's maybe not every single, but that's a lot of musicians' goal, is to have their music heard, everywhere. And obviously that's still, a goal, but I think if you're working at it and you're putting all the time and energy and taking the right steps, then I think, doors open as they're supposed to.
Right. And a lot of people, I had a thought there, and I'm sorry, sometimes the train derails, and it did just soon as I opened my mouth.
No, you're
Um,
fine.
I was there. I had a point I was going to make, and so I'm really just like,
No, you're totally
boom, it was
good.
gone. This is I'm not even going to preface this question. I'm just going to ask it, and you answer it the best you can, because I think you'll understand exactly what I'm asking. Is it worth it?
Oh yeah. I 100% believe that it's worth it because, kind of like I was saying, I'm getting to do, the thing that makes me happy. And I truly feel like, when people say, if you do what you love, you're never going to work a day in your life. And I truly
Mhm.
feel like that. I feel very blessed that, I have during my weeks off, and I get to travel, I get to go do things that I want to do. And partially too, kind of why I chose to do music instead of nursing is because I wanted to be able to go see things and experience life. And I feel like music has definitely opened those doors for me, and it continues to do it every year as I grow. And so I see, only good things, coming in the future. I try to kind of keep my mind like that. So it's definitely worth it.
Right. Um, what venue or festival would be your dream gig? Now, I know when I say venue, everybody goes, and I agree with them. Don't misunderstand me. Everybody generally goes to the same place. But what is your dream gig or your dream festival that you just say, one of these days I want to play there?
Truly, it's Bonnaroo. I've always wanted to play main stage in Bonnaroo because I remember, since I grew up so close to where Bonnaroo happened, all my friends, I remember when I was younger, they'd all go, especially like in high school, and my parents were like, "You're not going to that. That's a hippie festival. There's drugs and blah, 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 blah." So I never went to it when I was younger, and I still haven't had the chance to go. But every year I look at the lineup and I love the music that they have, and it feels like a mini Woodstock. And so I've always wanted to play Bonnaroo. And of course,
That's
like
good.
the Grand Ole Opry.
Yeah. Everybody wants to be in the circle, and I get
Yeah.
that. I mean, country music, I understand, and um, actually, I saw where an artist the other day was asked by, I can't think of his name now. He had been the head of the record label. I thought it was somebody with the Opry, but they asked him if he would have his Opry debut. And quite honestly, I was a little surprised when I think about him compared to some other people that he was in there that early.
Yeah.
And I'm not bashing,
No, yeah, because
pop
that's a
country, any of that stuff, but
no,
um,
I totally get that.
I tend to, and maybe it's just me being egotistical, but I think if a lot of people on Music Row listen to the podcast at times, I'd never be allowed within city limits, because I have very strong opinions about Music Row.
I do too. I
Uh,
find myself often in interviews, saying things that are kind of bashing, music business that I'm thinking, "Oh, I probably shouldn't have said that," but it's the
right,
truth
right.
and it's really how I feel.
Well, and I work in radio during the day, so it's like you got to be careful what you say. But I don't work for a major company. There's no heart and I in my company, if you know what I mean. And so I don't work for any of those guys, so I really don't care, and if they want to kick
Right,
me out of Nashville, that's fine. They don't pay my bills anyway, so we'll just
right.
leave that at that. Um, so if you could change anything about your music career at this point, what would it be?
Who probably if I could change anything, um, I I would like to be doing more band stuff rather than so much acoustic stuff, which
Mhm.
I'm working on that right now. I've got some guys down here that I'm working with, and they basically told me like, if you can get as busy as you are acoustically with a band, like because they're in really great bands right now, and they want to work with me, but this is also how they pay their bills and how they feed their families, and so that's kind of my I think what, if I could change anything, I would be doing that. And I mean, I do a lot of acoustic stuff, and it's so much more fun playing with a band. But I am excited
Yeah.
this fall and winter. I have about 5 or 6 band shows booked, which is more than I've had since I moved. When I moved to Nashville, I had a band down here in Texas. And then when I moved, obviously they're now playing with other people. So yeah, so I wish that when I moved down here that I would have gotten on that a lot quicker, but it's okay. It's happening, so
It'll all work out.
it will. It will.
So how can people find out like where you're gonna be and when your music releases, basically,
Yeah,
where
so
can
from
they find out more about you?
most of my stuff is on jessieleemusic.com, Jessee. It's like the end of Tennessee. And then I also have, like Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all that kind of stuff. And that's all under Jessee Lee Official or Jessee Lee Music. And
Mhm.
then I do have a website, jessieeleemusic.com. And then I've linked some of my shows there, but I also have a Bands in Town. Um, so if people go to bandsintown.com and type in Jessee Lee Music, then you'll see all the shows that I have booked until I guess November right now. And so I try to upload those monthly as I book shows. And then
Okay.
yeah, for the most part, and then um I have one song on Spotify and iTunes and all of that, which is Dive Bar Superstar. And
Right.
so I'll be posting on Facebook and Instagram and all that about the next one that will be released next month.
Okay. So they can just follow you on any of your social media to find out more about the music and to find out where you're gonna be. Then they can follow you or go over to the website, which again is
Yes.
JESSEELEE music.com.
You
So
gotta just remember all the E's you can.
right. Just get all the E's in there and you're good to go. Well, Jesse, it's been great talking to you, and I have had a blast. I've just loved finding out more about you and everything that I mean, and just listen to your music. I can't wait for the next song to come out.
Well,
Because I
thank you
really
so much. Thank you for having me. This was wonderful.
Absolutely. And I will tell everybody that if you want to listen to Dive Bar Superstar more, if you for some reason can't remember how to spell Jesse's name, well, the easiest way to do it would be after the show. It's going to be on the Before Nashville playlist. So I'm going to get that on there as soon as we get the show done. So we'll have Dive
Awesome.
Bar Superstar on there so you can listen to it. And then you can go to Jesse's page and follow, like, whatever you have to do on Spotify and all that stuff. I don't know. But
Yes, please do. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And we will, again, we'll be back with you hopefully this week. I've got some things that have come up, so I don't know if I'm going to be able to be back on normally on Thursday night. I've already got an artist confirmed, but I'm going to have to do some checking on that. So hopefully we'll be back on Thursday night. But you guys take care, and we'll see you next time.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to follow Before Nashville on all social media and listen wherever you get your podcast. Tune in again for another country star of tomorrow on Before Nashville with George Davis. I'm Kevin Casey on behalf of Worldwide Pants. Have a great night.